loops and iteration. Okay, so that is chapter 5. You're going to the next 2 weeks. We're going to practice loop concepts. What is loop? It's a program, a code snippet, a construct of the program, a part of the code that we want to execute repeatedly. Okay, so part of the code, a section of the code that we execute repeatedly. Okay, when a particular condition is true. When a particular condition is true. In the code, when the condition is true, then we are executing it. So it has three components. One is a condition. Okay, condition that needs to be executed, that needs to be checked whether it is true or not. Same like a if else snippet, the block of the code, block of statements will get executed. The same thing here. So the code given in that section, a part of the section will get executed. Okay, but the thing is like it may get false. So to not execute the statements, the condition is it should not be true. If it is true, and execute it. When the condition will stop. Okay. So the each time the loop statement is executed, every time, how many times it is getting executed? Each time that is termed as iteration. Iteration or iteration? What do you say? Iteration, right? Iteration. So, for example, if you are executing it 10 times, it has 10 iterations. Okay, how many times it is getting executed? That is called iteration. Different iteration. And execution count is managed by loop variable. Inside that loop statement, you will have something. Definitely thing that will keep track of how many things is getting executed. Okay, so that is very n will be 1. When you execute it second time in the second thing. So there is a variable which is varying. That's why this variable keep track of. Count, keep counting. Keep counting how many times it. So that variable is called loop variable. Okay, so that is called loop variable. So there are two types in any programming, whether it is Python, types of loop, for loop, in loop. So there will be again in JavaScript, you might have learned this. There is again another type called do while loop. Okay, it is same as while, but there is no much difference. Do while is nothing but execute it at least once. Doesn't matter. Execute it at least once. That Python also has do while. Okay, but it's not a separate section that comes up under the while loop. So there are basically two different types of loops are there. For loop and while loop. Okay. So first we are going to discuss about while loop. The while is the keyword that you will use. So while loop is the construct that repeatedly execute a block of statement as long as the loop's expression, that is the condition is true, same as for loop. So for any kind of loop, okay? While loop, you will use the keyword while and it will execute the code of statement until the condition is true. At the end of the loop body, execution goes back to the starting of while loop and evaluate the condition once again. I'll show you here. For example, here A is a variable while A is less than 3. What is the condition here? The condition is A should be less than 3. So this condition will be evaluated. This is true, right? Initially, as of now, if it is the first iteration, A value is 0. So does it Is this condition true? Yes, this condition is true. So when this is true, it will get into the loop of state, the code of the code snippet or block of statement. It will print it. And then what happens after that? Right? So the A value will become 1. That is what we have given in that statement. After that, this is the end of that loop execution. That means the code. And then it will check it again. After this statement, it will come back and check this the condition again. If this condition is true or false, this condition is still true, right? A is 1. So since this condition is still true, it will execute this and the A value will become 2. And then it will check it again. Still the condition is true and then execute it again. And then it will increase the value to 3. So this time, this is true or false. This time it is false because it is not less than 3. It is equal to 3. So this condition is false. So it will stop the execution and it will come to the end of the loop. Okay, it means out of the loop, out of the code snippet. So this is called while loop execution. So what are the things that you have to note it down here? The keyword while. Keyword while. After the keyword while, you have to use the condition, give the condition. You can use parenthesis or without parenthesis, it should work, okay? And then colon, as you have used if else statement, you have to use the colon. And the indentation, that's how you're saying it is the code of statement, block of statement that needs to get executed. Loop statements, these are loop statements, which has one indentation that comes under the loop statement. Okay, so this is the syntax. Maybe we'll try it in the code. Okay, we'll try this code. Even though it is a small code, I want you to try it. So here, setting it this variable is called loop variable. Loop variable, right? Does it keep track of looping? It has to get executed. That is getting trapped. That is getting tracked with this this variable. So A is the variable. And then here we are setting the condition with the keyword while and setting the condition colon. And then this is the code of statement with the indentation 1. When, as I have mentioned, when the A value is 0, it will print it. And then 1, 2, 3, run it. When I give 10, until the value is 10, it will keep on increasing the value. Okay, so please do it. For this particular case, first iteration. Iteration number 1 is 0, so it will print inside. And then it will take value to 1. So this condition is also true. So you can go to second iteration. Okay, so it will print inside and the A value will become 2. So it will keep on moving until when the condition is false. When the condition will be false, when the A equal to 10, then the condition will become false. So it will come out of the iteration and execute the next line of statement, which is given in the else spot. Which is given in the else spot. So I hope you have done this 4 lines of coding and understood this. Got it? Okay. So next we are moving on to the next little bit more repeated steps, little bit with one more example. So you can look at this. Here n value is 5. When the n value is greater than 0, the condition could be anything. Here the condition is greater than 0. Okay, so then print the value and the n value is getting decremented. So this iteration, so how you are changing iteration variable, that matters, right? So in the previous example, you made it like A equal to A plus 1. The iteration will not work when you don't do anything with this iteration variable. Here, what you're doing, you're decreasing it. You're decreasing it. So in the first iteration, the n value will be 5. The condition is true. It will print the value 5. And n will become 4 with the statement. And again, this is still true and print 4. And then it will become 3. 3 will be printed, 2 will be printed, 1 will be printed. And then when the value is 0, then this condition will become false. When this condition is false, it will not print any of these things. It will come out of the indentation. What is that out of the indentation? The next statement, right? So this will get executed. When this condition is true, what is that? Indentation level will not get executed. What is outside this indentation level will get executed. What is there in the outside of this indentation level? Print this statement and also print the n value. Okay, maybe let's try this too. Second example. N value, iteration variable, n value, and while keyword, condition is greater than 0. It should be greater than 0. And print the n value each time. And this is the iteration changing. This is a crucial thing. If you don't give anything to change the iteration variable, then it will end up in infinite looping, which we will discuss in the next example. So this step is crucial. This step is important. You have to change the looping variable, okay? Or else it will be infinite process. So print and then indentation level end of the loop, okay? So when I try it, or not this, okay, when I execute this, so you can see n is 5 means 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So when I set the n value as 8, 1, when it is 1, then it will become. Maybe if I give the value as -1, what will happen? Even 0 will get printed, and when it is -1, then it will be end of the loop. Okay, so did you understand what are the important concepts here? Condition. What is the condition? And what is the how we are changing the iteration variable? These two are important. And the indentation, where the indentation ends. So when the condition is false, it will come out of the indentation and execute the next statement. So let's move on to the next concept. So what kind of possible errors, bugs will be there in this simple concept? Where can be the bugs? Where can be the errors? So then in looping, very important, like very common, very popular, like a popular error concept is called infinite looping. So when the condition is always true, okay, it will never become false, always true. What will happen? When the condition is always true, it will never stop. It will keep on executing this statement, no matter how many lines are there inside this indentation with this statement. It will keep on executing it. That is called infinite looping. Okay, so that will end up in infinite looping concept. So let's first see how it will occur and how to handle it. For example, in this example, you can see iteration variable, that is counting variable is 5, and while keyword condition is given, and inside this indentation level, you're asking it to print two things, in and then in again. And then here you can notice we missed this crucial part, that how we are changing the iteration variable. We missed that part. So when I miss it, what happens? Even you're trying, like, what happens? It keeps on going. This symbol, the timer symbol, it will keep on running because it keeps on running it. Okay, it is never ending process. It will keep on moving. Okay, so until the charger goes off or the laptop is something happens, until then it will keep on executing the statement. Okay, so this problem is called infinite looping error. If it happens in your Jupyter notebook, just interrupt and kill the process. Okay. So do you see where the problem is caused? Because it does not have anything in the statement to change the variable and to make this condition false. N is 5 means n will be always greater than 0 will be 5 will be always greater than 0. This condition will be always true. Okay. So there is nothing in our code that will change the condition. Okay. So how to change that? By changing this iteration variable. So with each iteration, you have to change that. It doesn't need to be arithmetic. It can be anything. You can give the logarithmic, you can give anything, any complex variable, depends on the problem. But the condition variable, the iteration variable needs to be changed. Okay. And then here, when I do it, you can see when the n value is 5, it will just print in again. And then n value will get decreased by 1 point. So n will be 4, printed. N will be 3, printed. N will be 2, printed. N will be 1, printed. And then when n is 0, this condition will become false. So this condition, like this is the condition that makes this condition false. Okay. This is the statement that makes this condition false. Okay. So when that part is missing, we will end up in infinite looping. So it's another kind of error. So please correct that previous code and give this iteration changing statement so that it will not end up in. You can have it as a separate coding snippet as well. It's up to you. Okay. So that is called infinite looping problem. There is another kind of problem. It's called not entering into the loop at all. That is not a big issue. Okay. The condition doesn't need to be true always. Okay. But in case if it is a logical error, that means you don't give proper condition, then it will not even check. It will not even execute it at least once. Okay. So if that is the real case, you don't need to worry. But if it is a mistake, if it is a logical error, then you have to check it. For example, in this case, n value is 0. This condition is always false. Okay. Even if you give the value n equal to, even like now, if you're giving n equal to n minus 1, even in this case, the condition, iteration condition is false. So it will never meet this condition. It will never meet this condition. So this is called not entering the loop error. So you have to focus in your starting variable, iteration statement, and then condition. These three are crucial components. You can note it down. In looping, what are the crucial components? Starting of the iteration variable, iteration statement that changes the value, and the condition where the iteration should be stopped. These three components. Okay. So in while loop, these are different, like in a different components. But when we work on for loop, it will be together. It will be more easier to read. Okay. But in which what kind of loop we are using, these three components are important. So next we are going to see a statement called break statement. Break. What is break? A break statement that ends the current iteration and jumps to the next iteration. It does not end the whole loop. It just skips a particular current iteration. For example, in iteration 5, there is something that we don't want in the program. Then you can skip the iteration 5 and move to iteration 6. Okay. So that skipping can be done by using the keyword break. Where you want to skip, under what condition you want to skip. In that condition, you have to give that condition with if. Look at this. You're using while loop and simply giving true. That means always true. Okay. And then here, you're giving a condition. If the line value is equal to done, then just break it. Then don't execute that particular iteration. Okay. So the break statement will be executed only when this condition which is given inside will be true. So this is called break statement. Break statement helps you to skip a current iteration. Let's see it with example. While keyword true. Here you're not giving any condition. What you're giving? You're simply giving the Boolean value itself. What does it mean? It is always true. Okay, considering that or true. But enter something that gets the input when the line is a variable. Okay, this variable, when it is done, then skip the current iteration. And then print the line. Okay, print the line. I think it's, I'm sorry, break means it does not skip the current iteration. It skips the whole loop itself. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Continue only will skip the current iteration. Please change. If you have taken notes, please change it. Break statement will end the whole loop itself. Only the continue will skip the current iteration. Okay. For example, just typing something. Enter something. Hello. Hi. How are you? Like I'm just printing anything. Okay. Even the integer, whatever. But when I enter done, then that will just finish the loop. If you look at this example, whenever I give the value, whenever I assign done with the variable line, whenever the variable has done, then it's skipping. It's not skipping, it's just completing the loop and come out of the loop and execute the statement which is outside this indentation level. Okay. So as break statement will break the whole loop. Break statement will break the whole loop and finish that loop. Whether the condition is true or false, it doesn't matter. It will just finish it. So that is break statement. So the another one is continue statement. The continue only will just skip the particular iteration. Okay. Continue will particular iteration, current iteration. Break will break the whole loop. So we'll see one example with continue statement. For example, in this example, you can see while keyword true condition, a variable getting the input and just printing this. You don't need to print it, just to give you get the input. Okay. Maybe let me say enter something. Okay. So I'm just entering something. Okay. But when I enter that iteration has been interrupted, that means it doesn't print it. It doesn't print the whatever value that I have entered. But it says that the iteration has been interrupted. When I say done, that will finish the loop. I'll explain it again. What I have done here, line is the variable that holds the string, whatever I have entered. Okay. So if the line value of 0 indexing, what is that 0 indexing? Here, what I have entered here has, so whatever I have entered after this has, it doesn't matter. If it sees something that starts with has, then that execution, that iteration should be interrupted. How can we say that? It doesn't matter what you enter in that string, but the first line should not be has. How can you say that? If line of 0, are you familiar with this concept, array? Right? 0, when the line of 0, okay, the 0 indexing, when the 0 indexing is 1, it will say the iteration has been interrupted and it will not print anything. Instead, so here you are giving print line, but this will not print anything. Okay. So it will continue. It will skip that execution. It will skip that iteration and it will continue. And next, it asks for enter something. When I say done, then it will just break the statement. So in this example, you have learned the importance of understanding the difference between continue and break. A current iteration and break will just end the loop. Got it? You want me to show? This example is done. Yeah. Okay. Next. We're going to see the for loop. Okay. So while loop is sometimes called indefinite loop because we don't know. It is not obviously You can see how many iterations are there. Those things are not obvious. You don't know when the condition may become false. Okay, those things are not clear. The condition may be false anytime, then the loop will be ending. Okay, so this, because of this reason, while loop is called indefinite loop, because it depends on the logical condition to become false. Okay, so since that one is pretty like it's not, it's abstract thing, it is not obvious thing, so that is why it is called indefinite loop. The loop we have seen so far is like whatever the example that we have seen, all of them, that depends on the conditions. But sometimes it doesn't need to be abstract. You can set how many times it should get executed. It can be clear. Iteration can be clear. Okay, which is possible by using for loop. Second type of loop, for loop. For loop is called definite loop. Most of the programmers, you can do a same programming in both for loop or while, but most of the programmer will prefer for looping because it is easy to understand, maintain, follow, or read anything. It is more readable. You can use both for loop or while loop, but it depends on a particular case. Like you can do the same thing with for, while, but for loop. Okay, let's look at the syntax. Particularly in Python, for loop is so popular. That is because it has a concept called temporary variable concept, okay, which is not there in other programming languages. So it has a temporary variable which keeps track of iteration. Okay, it's like temporarily you can create a iteration variable that keeps track of things. Okay, which is not there in other languages. You have to set a variable and then you have to keep track of variable like how you did it with the while loop. Okay, but in for loop of Python, these things can be done internally. Okay, so that is why it is so popular. In Python, particularly in Python, for loop is so popular. So look at the syntax: keyword for, and then iteration variable. Okay, which is changing that iteration variable. In is the keyword. You have to use the in keyword. So you're using two keywords, for and in. In between for and in, you will use that iteration variable. Okay, this example, then condition. You can give any condition, print I. So particularly, it's not, this is a different case, but normal syntax for the files, I guess. So this is the index starting or starting of the condition, condition, and then iteration condition. N equal to n plus 1. This condition. The condition starting value. So if you have starting value is nothing but will be here, right? Okay. So in for loop, cases that you mentioned, same thing. Okay. So this is the normal for loop, but in Python, for loop also used in iteration through the list or any kind of array. Okay. So in Python, you will use for types in two ways. Either like this or like this. We are going to first follow. This is popular. This is kind of there in other languages as well. But this one is that Python. Python. It's often there only in Python, but this one is there in others. We'll see this particular example where array iteration, the second type, or I iteration variable in. This is called list. You will learn what is list in this in advanced Python concept. So a list is nothing but a single variable that can hold more than one element. So far, you learn how to create a how to save a variable, a single value in a variable. But moving forward, you will learn how to save multiple values in single variable. Okay. So list is one of the type where you can see in one single list variable, you have 5 elements saved. So what the Python does, this iteration, this I, first it will be assigned with 5. The indexing will be 0. It creates a internal indexing. When it assigns 5, when it checks with 5, the indexing value will be 0. When it moves on to the next element, the iteration will become 1. Indexing value will become 1. With 3, it will become 2. With 2, it will become 3. And then with 1, it will become 4. Okay, so when I will value will become 5, the iteration value will become 5. That will be the end of the loop. Okay, so if I execute this, it accesses 5. What is the value in 5? So that is 0 indexing. It doesn't need to be 5. Let me give 5, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Okay. So when the I value is 0, 50 will get printed. So then internally the I value will progress to I value 1, where 40 will get printed. And then 30, 20, 10. So internally the I value will progress inside this. Okay. So that is special about Python. Yes. I value will not, the indexing value will not become, but you can give the condition. So how it progresses internally, that is always 0, 1, 2, 3, because always the array value starts with 0, right? Except MATLAB or other languages, Python, C++, what is the indexing value starts from? 0, right? So it cannot be negative because array value, index value always starts with 0. Okay, so based on that condition only it is progressing. Okay. Okay, so print I and then end of the loop. When when the condition will become false, here we are not giving any condition at all. When the array value, when there is end of the array, when there is end of the elements, then it will just come out of the indentation and print end of the loop. Okay, let's see one more list concept. In list, like any other variable, you can create integer variable, string variable, floating point, right? The same thing, even in the list. List normally will be specified by square bracket. You will learn all these things in detail in data programming too. Okay. So this list is the variable list, friends named as friends. This is the list variable. This variable holds string elements, 4 string elements. So how you can iterate through this? Look at this. This is different from this. This one, you're directly giving the list variable, but here what you have given, it's an important concept. I hope you understood. Here what you have given, list variable. Okay. So what will be replaced here? It will replace it with this list indexing. Okay. So internally, when I value, always the array indexing starts with 0. What will be the first thing? What is there in the 0 indexing? What is there in the first index? Glenn. What is there in the second index? Sally. And third index, John. So internally, it will progress in what is there in the list. Okay. And then when there is end of the list element, then it will just come out of the indentation and print done. Okay. So this is how we, like, this is for string variable, string list of variable. You can see I value. So the I value, the variable, the iteration variable value changes along with each iteration. Okay, it seems like everything is list here. And the next class, I will just give you some of the examples for that normal for loop. Okay. give some examples, real life examples, how we can use. For example, uh, just look at the slide and tell me what is the largest number. Okay, you are going to look at the slide and tell me whether it is easy or hard to find the largest number. I'm going to do it quickly. You're going to look at the screen and tell me which is the largest number. Can you tell me what is the largest number? 74. How did you do that? Internally, how your brain calculated it. That's what we are going to see. Was it easy or hard? When when I show you this slide and ask you which is the largest number, was it easier comparatively? Comparatively easier, right? But when I did it in the other way, was it hard? Comparatively hard. Why? Why it was harder? You're looking one variable at a time, right? You're looking one variable at a time and you have to save that variable somewhere so that you can do the comparison, okay? So if you understood this mechanism, then understanding how the loop works will be easier, okay? So for our brain, looking at this like this is easier because we have the visual understanding what are the things are there, easier to understand and do the logical calculation. But do you think a computer or a computer processor will do this in this way or in this way? It doesn't matter whether you show this, give you, will it take this visual clue? No, it cannot take this visual clue. Okay. So whether you give the values before or after, always it will handle this as this. Okay. It will take one thing at a time and then compare it with the previous value and then find out whatever you ask it to do, it will do that. Okay. So that's what I have given in the slide. Initially, I'm just setting, you can set 0 or -1. Okay. So I have set -1 because sometimes integer value will include 0 too. Okay. So mostly it will be none or -1. So initially, comparing with -1 or 3, which is bigger? 3 is bigger. 41 and 3, which is bigger? 41 is bigger. 41 and 12, which is bigger? The previous value. 41 is bigger. So it will not update the value. It will keep the previous value. 9, again, it will just compare that 41 with 9 and it will not update the value. 70, it will compare the 74 with the 41 and then it will update the value because it is bigger. Okay. So this is how the processor will process any kind of information. Okay. So we are going to write the code. Whatever we have seen so far, whatever you said, like in finding out the biggest number, we're going to write it as a code. Okay, let's write it as a code and understood the concept. As you understood the concept, let's see it in a coding. So in that example, you can see we have set a variable to keep track of what is the so far largest number, a temporary variable that holds the current largest value in the current iteration, largest value in the current iteration. That will be saved in this variable. So initially we are setting it as -1. Okay. And then we're giving the for loop and the current iteration in list. Okay. And then here we are checking if the current iteration number starts with 0 indexing, the 0 indexing value will become 9, right? Will be 9. In the first iteration, what is the number? 9 will be the number, right? If the number is greater than largest so far, is it true? Maybe I'll write it down. Setting the largest as -1. -1. 41, 12, 74. Okay, for I in or number in, whatever. You can give anything, okay? The number in. So when the number in the initial iteration, the first, right, we take this. So in the first iteration, the number will be 9. The number will be 9. So the largest total is -1. So is it true? The condition is true. What is the condition? If the n should be greater than, is it true or false? Condition is true. N is greater than -1, right? The condition is true. So it will hold. It will hold the largest. So that it will iterate to the next iteration where it will be 1. In 1. What is there in the, it is greater. So the n, the largest value will become 41. And then it will be false. So it will not change the value. It will move on to the next iteration. And then here 3, it will move on to the iteration where n value is 74. It will move on to next iteration. And it change the condition is false. It will keep that 74 as the largest. Okay, so that's what I have written there for your understanding. So it will each time it will check the condition when the number is greater than the largest so far, then it will change it. Okay. So after that, before starting all this loop, it is -1, but after checking this list, it will become 74. Okay, so here we are using the loop and the condition to find out largest of given elements, largest value of given elements. So this is your first code demo that includes both loop and condition. Hereafter, this is going to be pretty common. You're going to combine loop and condition. Did you understand this concept, the iteration, all these things? What is this iteration is for? The largest so far equal to number. This iteration belongs to for loop or condition. Directly it relates to for if condition, and that belongs to that if condition is a child of for loop. Okay. So this is the grandchild. It is like a grandchild iteration inside the indentation inside the indentation. Okay. So next concept, we're going to do the same thing, but with counting. We're going to do another example. How to do counting? How many times we have done the iteration variable counting. Let's do that. Iteration variable counting. Let's do the second example. So here the same, let's take the same list of variable, but this time instead of finding largest number, we are going to see how many times this loop been iterated. Okay, first we are checking just setting a condition, a variable to keep track of this iteration. Okay, so the n is the variable that keeps track of this iteration. You're familiar with we have discussed this in while loop, right? So this iteration variable keeps track of the iterations. For thing is a temporary variable in list. So the 0, when it starts with 0 indexing, we have 9 in the 0 indexing. When it counts this, when it enters into the loop, what we are doing here, n value will become 1. Okay, it will print n value, and what is there in the n value? The 0 indexing, 9, that will get printed. Think, n value, that is the index, and also what is there that is assigned in that index, 0 indexing, that will get printed. And then it will come out of the loop because come out and check whether this array is empty. The array is not empty. So it will just move on to the second iteration where the n value is 1. Indexing is 41. So thing will be assigned with 41, but n will become n plus 1. Okay, so that is second indexing, third indexing, fourth indexing, fifth indexing. So keep on see, and then it will say how many counts, how many iterations are there. With each iteration, it will keep on counting, and then it will just tell you how many iterations were there. Okay, counting. So let's see one more thing with this example. This time, we are going to keep on adding this, not only counting it, we are going to add all the elements with each iteration. 9 plus 41 plus 12 plus 3 plus 74 plus 15. The same list element. This time we are going to do summation. How to do that? So since we are doing summation, let's create a variable that keeps track of. Here we are counting. So this variable will keep track of counting. But here we are doing summation. So create a variable that keeps track of the summation value. So initially the summation value, we are setting it as 0. And then here we are giving the loop with 0 index starts with 0 index, some value. We are setting it as 0. So 0 plus thing. What will be there in the thing? 0. What will be there in the thing? Temporary variable. What is there in the temporary variable? What is there in the temporary variable? The first iteration. 9. Right? 0 plus 9. The sum value will become 9. Okay. Then print 9 and also the current iteration variable. And then it will and check it again whether the list is empty. The list is not empty. So it will just assign 41 with index number 1. Okay. Already 9 is there in the sum. So 9 plus 41, it will become 50. Okay. Maybe I'll write it down. Okay. For I need the same value. 9, 1, 12, 3, 74, 50. So I saw it will start with 0 indexes, right? Statement is sum equal to sum plus 3. Then I have written here, I have mentioned I whatever is sum. The 0 iteration, what is the sum value? This plus 9. So the sum value is 9 in the first iteration. The second iteration, what is that? 41, right? So already 41. So the sum value will be in the first iteration. Then index number 2. If it is 12, already 15 is there plus 12. And then this. Okay, already 62 is that. And then this. 55 plus 74. What is over here? We done iterations. How many iterations are there? 6. You understand? Yes. So that's what is getting executed here. You can see. So after each summation, the value is 154. So next, let's see something similar, but in terms of like, we'll do some more, one more thing. Like here we have added count and here we have added summation. So we'll do average. Okay. So for the average, summation divided by how many times it got counted. Okay. Summation and count. So let's calculate average. So since we need to keep track of two things here, not only summation, we need how many times, how to find the average. Summation divided by number of times, number of elements, right? So we have to keep track of two things here. Summation, also the number of elements. So we are keeping track of two elements, two variables. And then loop. Like in your first example, n equal to n plus 1. Keep track of count. Like in this, before this example, keep track of summation. And then when you do the counting, when you do the average, how will you calculate the average? Summation divided by number of elements. Summation divided by number of elements. That will give you the average. Okay. So next, we're going to do the comparison. Okay, in the next example, we're going to do the comparison. So this is kind of filtering. When we use if condition, already we have, you're familiar with using if condition along with the for looping. We can even do filtering. Okay, so we can do the filtering. When we need to do the filtering of the given elements, then we can use if condition to do the filtering. For example, if you look at this code, let's use the same list elements. And when we want to see whether any value is greater than 20, we want to print the elements which are greater than 20. We don't want to print elements when it is less than 20. We want to print it only when it is greater than 20. In that case, how can we do that? We want to print only the elements which are greater than 20. Same iteration. And when the value is greater than 20, print it. Just add this condition before. So it will get printed only when the value is greater than 20. But if you want to print it when the elements are less than 20, I'm just changing the condition. In that case, it will just print all the elements which are lesser than 20. Okay. So this is nothing but what? Filtering. Filtering. Okay, next we are going to do searching operation. This is example for filtering operation. Agree? You're filtering the elements, you're filtering the display. Next, we are going to do searching. Searching. Okay, so we are going to find whether a particular element is there, particular data is there in the list, or particular number is there in the list. How can we do that? So here, it will say whether true or false. If it is, for example, in this particular list element, if 3 is there, it will say I found 3. It is true. It's a Boolean variable, true or false. If it found 3, it will say true. If it doesn't found 3, it will say false. Okay, the result is either true or false. So in this case, our variable should be a Boolean variable because the result is going to be either true or false. So what you have to set here? A Boolean variable. Initially, you have to set it as false. You didn't find it yet. And then iterate through the loop. When you find the value 3, in this condition, the found will become true. or else the found will be always false. Initially, you have set it as false. Under this condition only, the found, which is a Boolean variable, will become true. When it becomes true, then only it will say found. For example, when I run it, before executing it, it says false. And then when the value is 9, it says false. 41, false. 12, false. 3, true. So it says true. And then it doesn't matter. After that, it doesn't matter whatever the value because it found the value inside the loop. So it will be always true. We can easily change it. When it found true, you can just say break. Do you think when you apply break, it will just not print any elements after that? Shall we try it? When you apply break, once it is found, it is found. You don't need to print the other elements. Unexpected indentation. Okay. I don't want to complicate it. But when you don't want to print it, you can simply say break. That break will avoid printing the other. Once it is found, it doesn't need to check the other elements because already it is found. Okay. So in this case, you can see after it found, it says that 3 is found. So here the condition, always the condition matters. Okay. Okay, what you set here, what you want to find, you want to find whether the element is there or not. So set it with the Boolean variable and then keep the condition inside the loop, keep moving on. So the last example that we are going to see with for loop and branching is finding the smallest value. Finding the smallest. We have seen how to find the largest value. That is our first example. Let's see how to do the smallest value. How will you do that? First, what we are going to find out, we are going to find out smallest value. We can set it as -1 or none. What you want to do, that first you have to set. And then for loop with temporary variable iteration. And then giving a condition. When the smallest is none, that means when it is not even started, take the first value. Maybe I will write it down here. Value, okay? The first value, whatever is there in the value, that will be assigned with the smallest, okay? Here, small is none. So you're taking it. When small is none, then whatever is there in the value, I will take it as I, that will be assigned with small, okay? Is less than small. When I is less than small, it will become the smallest. That will become the smallest value. Okay. For example, in this first iteration is 9. So you are setting up the small 9 will become the smallest value. In the second iteration, is 41. 41 9 will be smaller, so still the smallest value will become 9. It will be 9. This will be 9. And then this is first indexing. The second index, that is third iteration. Nine is not greater than 12. So the small value will be still 3. 3 is smaller than 9, right? Now the small will become 3. Now the small will become 3. So hereafter it will be 3. It will be 3 in the next term. 64, 74. Always still less. Iteration, the line is 15. Still 3. So 3 will become the 3 will be the smallest value. Smallest value. So for until you're familiar with this looping and if condition, you have to draw the iteration map like that. Once you become convenient, once you become familiar with this, then you can do the mind calculation. Until then, I suggest you to do a map, written statement, written iterations. So just take a paper and do what is the in each iteration, what has happened inside the statement. Okay. Just write it down so that you will have better idea. You'll have better idea how you can write the loop and conditions. So did you understand this concept? The smallest one, which I have written down in the book. With each iteration, how things are getting changed. Okay. So I think that is the lecture part. That is the end of the lecture. You can combine a lot of things. Okay, in the upcoming examples, we'll see how to use not in operator, in operator, all those things we'll see in example. But as part of the lecture, so these are the things, the syntaxes that you should be familiar in the basic level. But when you apply it in the application level, you will learn all the other techniques.